Romania's defence ministry has confirmed some US troops being rotated out will not be replaced. It comes as the US plans to cut the number of troops stationed on NATO's eastern flank in Europe. Deutsche Welle correspondent Arthur Sullivan joins us now from Berlin. Arthur, g'day. So what exactly has been announced by the US?
Yes, Joe. So this news sort of trickled out a little bit unusually. It didn't actually come immediately from the US. It came out from Romania's defence minister, as you said, and they said that the US had briefed it and other NATO allies that it would be redeploying this rotating brigade of troops that has been deployed in various countries in NATO, Romania, Germany, Poland and several others near the eastern flank of NATO since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. And the US Army Command in Europe has since officially confirmed the news with a statement. Now, the exact number of troops returning to the US has not been confirmed. There's some reports saying it's around 700, others say it could be several thousand. We actually don't know exactly how many troops have been in this rotating brigade at the current time, and no numbers have been officially confirmed by the US, but it has confirmed that it will be redeploying this entire combat team. Now, the statement from the US kind of played down the significance. It said this is not an American withdrawal from Europe, it's not a sign of lessened commitment to NATO, and it also emphasised that the decision should be seen as a reflection of its confidence in Europe's increased military capacity. And one of the most critical parts of its statement, it said it was part of a process to ensure what it called a balanced military posture from the US, and that's a reference to long-sighted US plans to pivot its military more towards the Asia-Pacific and possibly more towards issues on its own border, and indeed its recently stepped-up campaign against drug trafficking in the region.
And so how key are these troops to European security? Does this make Europe less safe?
Well, the numbers are obviously important here, Joe, and as I said, we don't know the exact number of troops being pulled. The US hasn't confirmed that number, but it is likely to be a significant number, and given that these troops were specifically deployed to European NATO members following the invasion of Ukraine as a show of support and heightened security at a time of deep tensions, the removal is raising eyebrows, although, European officials have also, like their US counterparts, played down the news. Now, in terms of overall numbers, the US is estimated to have around 84,000 troops stationed across Europe as of earlier this year. Now, that number does fluctuate regularly based on rotations and exercises and so on. And so in that context, whatever the current number is, it's not a major withdrawal of troops. But the worry is that it could be the start of a process that would see larger numbers pulled in the coming years. And the context there is that the Trump administration has repeatedly threatened to reduce its support for Europe's defence. And while US commitment to NATO does appear to have been genuinely strengthened in recent months, there obviously is a growing concern in European security circles that it could be the beginning of something rather than simply one moment in time.
And Arthur, you mentioned before that the US is saying it has greater confidence in Europe being able to defend itself. But can Europe now truly defend itself?
Well, yes, that US statement did very pointedly refer to Europe's increased defence capabilities, and there's no doubt that Europe's NATO members have significantly stepped up commitment to their own security in the last few years, mostly, it should be said, at the prompting and prodding of US President Donald Trump. So the alliance's 32 members, which the vast majority are European, they agreed earlier this year to increase defence spending to 5% of GDP over the next 10 years by 2035, and many have already made huge spending hikes since that invasion of Ukraine in 2022. So in general, Europe's posture has shifted. I mean, even this week we saw reports of the EU, national governments in Europe and NATO formulating plans for how they would use their transit systems collectively in the event of war to carry tanks and artillery across the continent. That's sort of unthinkable things that we wouldn't have considered just a few years ago. But to bring it back to that question, can Europe really defend itself? Well, it depends from what exactly. At the moment, there's drone incursions suspected to be orchestrated by Russia, disrupting European airspace, particularly along that eastern flank. Obviously, Europe's NATO members can defend itself from that kind of thing. But were some countries on the eastern flank of NATO to face the kind of aggression that Ukraine has, so ground troops invasions, aerial bombardment, attacks on infrastructure, that would be a different picture. Obviously, Europe wants the US to be there for it in that kind of an extreme scenario, but increasingly it seems like it needs to be prepared for the possibility, at least, that it might not be.
Okay, Arthur Sullivan there in Berlin. Taking a look at the satellite image first, a heat